You're listening to the Broadway Podcast Network.
Without further ado, the Dear Friends Podcast. Dear friends, spill your woes to your musical family. Dear friends, they will take your questions and turn them into nuggets of wisdom and anecdotes in an otherwise cynical world. Dear friends.
Hi, I'm dear friend Emily.
I'm dear friend Christy.
And I'm dearest friend Jess, and welcome to Dear Friend, a write-in advice podcast for the musical-minded. How are my two dear friends doing?
Not bad.
Feeling randy, my dear.
Randy.
Feeling slutty right now. Feeling like I want to talk about some interesting topics today.
Well, that's good, because we have a write-in letter.
Good.
This is from Lori Williams, and she says, Hey, dear friends. What do you think are some of the horniest musicals out there? The ones that get you hot and bothered? Love the show. We'll talk soon. All right. That's a good question. Like, in our early days of Dear Friends, we talked some real graphic, horny stuff.
Hell yeah.
We needed to dip a foot back into that.
We
and
love
I
the
actually think
horn.
this is a lot of fun. And I feel like some people's answers may not be as obvious. But this is something like a lot of folks in the early days, like even with the Oklahomas of the world, you went to the theater to feel aroused by like pretty women on stage. Like even in the old days of the musical comedy, that was an aspect of it.
Well, yeah.
Oh,
I
yeah,
mean,
you could go to the Follies and
see
Ziegfeld
the girls
Follies and
kicking
see
their
girls
legs.
in amazing tableaus and costumes that left little to the imagination.
You could see an underpants.
You could see more than an underpants, I'll tell you.
Yeah,
You see a whole silhouette with a headdress and only sparkles covering your tits. This was highbrow, baby.
You know, back in the days of the can, women wore split knickers, so the appeal of that was like you kick the legs up and it's like you saw everything.
Ooh.
Or
Yeah.
just enough of everything.
And then you think about as Broadway musicals went on, even in the early days, the innuendo is what gets you.
Oh my God, Cole
Porter,
Porter.
dirty motherfucker, dirty man, so good at weaving incredibly blunt
Yeah.
sexuality into just clever
Dude,
double
yeah,
entendres.
his lyrics are coded like Enigma. Jeez.
Yeah. And I think, it's funny. I could think of a lot of sexy songs and sexy moments for sure.
Mm-hmm.
When it comes to full scale, the whole musical is horny. My mind immediately went to just anything Bob Fosse had
Oh my
his
God,
hands
yes,
on.
me too. I mean,
Everyone is horny. Even his early days of choreography, just doing choreography, like the Pajama Game, horny.
How to Succeed in Business, real horny.
There's some horniness in How to Succeed. There's just, he knows how to pull that sexuality out. And then when he started taking the reins completely, it was just sex,
yeah,
sex,
well,
sex, all the time.
Bob Fosse, if you've ever read the Sam Wasson biography or seen Fosse Burden, he had issues with a capital I, so.
Oh, he was sexualized very young, and it just was a big part of his life. And his whole thing was the lowbrow.
Right.
If Jerome Robbins was ballet, Fosse was burlesque.
Right.
And even shows that aren't necessarily about sex, Chicago has sex in it, but it's not about sex. It's about manipulation and whatnot. But that's a sexy as hell show. And then you get someone like Gwen Verdon, whose whole thing was winky sexy, cutesy sexy, not so much vampy sexy. Even Lola is kind of cute.
I'm about to say, Lola is
But
an
Lola
awakening.
even then is still kind of hello, Joe. It's still less blah, 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 blah. It just worked so well, that kind of wink come hither kind of sexuality. I love that stuff. The fishnets,
I will say the Fosse that works the least for me for sexy is probably Chicago. I don't think his original Chicago choreography is that sexy, to be honest.
All right.
I think Cabaret is peak sexy, and Chicago's much further down, and in the middle you've got all the Pippins. Pippin, I think is
Pippin has a lot of sexy in it for sure.
Yeah, Pippin is super horny.
Especially that original production.
Yeah.
But a lot of that is, adolescent coming of age. stuff. So
I think that's where the thematic side of the Fosse sexy really does kind of stand out. Instead of Cabaret the film, yes, a lot more so, but in Pippin, it's like actually progressing a theme with the sexy.
Yeah. Well, and sex was just part of who he was. So it's like I feel like you can't even have his work without it, because that's just what he put into everything. And like with Chicago, just or any of those, like the whole idea of these little movements, these little subtle movements, these like isolating the hip and the shoulder, like that stuff is really sexy. And then like his first one was that he directed and choreographed was Sweet Charity. Yeah. And that it's not very sexy, even though it's about call girls. It's like danger, like the sexiest one is Hey Big Spender, but it's like aggressive, you know?
Yeah, I was gonna say, it's for them, it's like the job, they're not into the sex. It's just like, I gotta come here and punch in and, get my fare home.
Yeah, whereas like Charity, they blast from the very beginning that she's looking for love.
That is like a deconstruction of the Fosse persona before he developed the Fosse persona. If you think about it, like if he had made that as like one of his last shows, people would be like, "Oh, this is a deep deconstruction of what he is most known for."
And he was working on the revival when he died.
Yeah, but he just did the same thing, I guess, in full circle. Didn't he die on the sidewalk right outside the revival?
He did. They were going to like the
Verdon's
premiere
arms.
or something, and he had a heart attack on the walk down. So
yeah, it's crazy.
I will say, out of all the Fosse Verdon episodes, that last one is like the worst one because it gets really into biopic territory, where it's like when Verdon lived with her daughter for the rest of her life. Well, what else is there outside of the Fosse as far as sexy musicals? I mean, there are the easy answers, like the Rocky Horror Picture Show, which I know for a lot of folks was an awakening.
Oh, yeah. Oh, God. Rocky Horror is incredibly sexy.
Now, which is sexier, the film or the stage version? Because I feel like the film both makes the sex goofier, but also is more iconic in a sexual nature.
I don't know. I mean, I don't know if I've even really seen the stage version, even though I think I've heard it and like seen clips, but I've seen the movie version way more, and obviously the live productions. And like I think I've read the stage version, like one of our Play Club readings back in the day. I've been Magenta and Columbia in different readings, and it's all pretty much the same. There might be some extended lyrics or something, but it's pretty much the same. But it's so liberatingly sexy. Even though it's kind of about like horrible aliens and Frankenfurter's like horrible, like for whatever reason you're still like really on board. I would love to see a trans
reading of Rocky Horror one day. I would really like to see like a trans director go in there and completely reconstruct that show.
Yeah, remember when they did it? They did that movie version and they had Laverne Cox play Frank, and it didn't quite work because Laverne Cox just reads as a woman to me, at least to most of us. And to me, Frank has to have, if anything, I would like to see a trans man take that role on and see what that would be like.
I would just, I don't know, like the idea. There's
or maybe more trans roles throughout the whole thing.
That's kind of the thing. I think when that came out, I was like, I just get Laverne Cox should be Magenta or Janice,
because Frank is supposed to be shocking, right? Like she sees him and faints, and
I was like, put John Candy in the role of Frankenfurter. Who cares?
Yeah, or maybe someone a little more ambiguous or non-binary.
Yeah, I was going to say probably non-binary. I think
where you can't quite figure them out.
I would actually love a non-binary role where they're just swapping like what is thought to be like gender-identifying clothing, depending on the scene. And every time you see, like, we need to throw the Tim Curry idea away and just try something brand new with that show.
Yeah, I can say that for me, if we're thinking about like the things like. There's two things that are like the sexiest thing to me in a musical. The first is a baritone. The second is big manly arm. I'm sorry, like a big man that can like lift me like it's nothing. Forget about it. I'm a sucker for it. It's like Gene Kelly with his rolled up sleeves is just about the sexiest thing in the world.
What about King Kong the musical? That's like a really big,
biggest arms got there.
I know, big arms, right? Like the guy, the tall guy in Hadestown. Forget about it.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
I mean,
for
even
me.
Patrick Page. I mean, he's got his sleeves rolled up and the brick tattoo and that deep voice.
Yeah. So, but going back to like the baritone thing, to me, the sexiest moment in a musical, like I think about it now, and it's like it catches my breath. Is Sarah come down to me?
Oh yes. Oh.
And Ragtime isn't a particularly sexy show, but Sarah Come Down to Me and Sarah Brown Eyes are two of the hottest things I can imagine.
I love,
Oh, God, it's so hot. And a lot of that is Brian Stokes Mitchell. I'm just in love with
agree.
him.
I'm a big fan of, kind of like the subtle and
I have to drink some water. I have to cool down a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, one of the reasons why, I love Phantom so much and why that was so formative is because, it's all kind of going on under the surface and they're just kind of touching and just kind of brushing just a little bit. And
the restraint.
It's not, it's barely, it's, just on the surface, but you can tell like, oh my God, that is hotter than, like all the... And then you have Love Never Dies where they spend 5 minutes saying, yeah, we banged.
I fucked you.
And I touched you. And I kissed you. And
we totally did it. And it's like, no.
I noticed that we're ignoring one of the most important and greatest musicals of all time about sex, which is Passion.
I was literally just about to say Jess's favorite musical, Passion. That's a lot of that. That's a lot of staring across the room. Doing that.
You start off with like a couple in bed together pretty early on.
Well, Sondheim famously wanted the musical to start and end with an orgasm, but he's like, but we had too much falling action and story to do. We couldn't do that.
Well, okay, if you want to talk about fun, horny Sondheim, A Little Night Music is horny.
Oh,
yeah.
Yes.
Everyone is having sex in that show, and
everybody is horny for at least one other person.
Now, Later, Soon. About sex. Miller's Son, about sex. A Weekend in the Country, about sex. Like, everything's about sex. It's just all about sex.
If you take the three big Sondheim musicals that are about sex, we got Passion, and we've got A Little Night Music, but we got to start all the way to the beginning, which is A Funny Thing Happened on the Way to the Forum, which is so sexy.
Yes,
Forum is goofy 60s go-go girl
it's that
sexy.
Yeah, it's that kind of burlesque, jokey, innuendo heavy, sexy, where you got the girls running around in their, skimpy outfits.
And the guys going like, wow, 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 wow.
Oh,
like,
I like maids. They're neat.
The old man, comedians.
The old man ogling the prostitutes next door, and everybody ought to have a maid, which is...
I do want to play Pseudolus someday. Pseudolus is on the list. That's... Please, no one try to make Forum woke, please. It's just, it's a lovely little 60s time capsule. Just those girls with their hair and the go-go music.
Everybody ought to have a maid with her consent. Everybody ought to have a working girl with consent.
A lurking girl.
I think it's like, it's
stupid.
I've never thought that it's one of those shows where it's like they're never saying that it's okay. It's just like these are who these characters are, and it's funny.
It is funny.
Pseudolus reads as strangely asexual to me.
I can see that.
In the movie, he's given like a love interest, but...
Yeah, I think it's mostly for Zero Mostel the mug at the Hot Girls. But that's pretty sexy. I think that at least from the choreography standpoint, I think West Side Story is pretty sexy. I think Tony and Maria are strangely chaste. Even in the new movie, I would like to see them a little hornier. Kind of like how Romeo and Juliet are.
That's source material right there. I mean, they have their wedding night, and then they're parted, and then they die.
But like,
don't forget they bang while the blood's still drying on Tony's face.
Exactly.
Well,
so
yes.
Good. But like I feel more you see it, especially like in the new movie and in the 61 film, you see it more with Bernardo and Anita. Like every scene, you're like, they do it on the regular.
They're totally doing it.
They love doing it. They're into each other a lot. So I think that stuff is sexy when they're doing those, when they're doing America in the film and Rita Moreno's like looking at George Takiris and flipping that skirt. Oh, it's so great. Going back to Cole Porter, I mean, too darn hot.
Yep.
I love seeing every iteration of that because it's like, wow, it's hot outside, but it's like, it's too hot outside to fuck. That's what the thesis of the song is.
Yeah.
One of my
that
favorite
sexual frustration.
Mm-hmm.
Have either of you listened to John Michael Acuzia's Hello Again, which is probably one of the horniest shows I've ever watched or seen? I love the movie,
they did a movie version of it, and I did a little kind of thing on it, know the score for it a couple of years ago, and it is... Yeah,
I am a big, maybe the defender of one of that musical, and that film, I think that film's actually very well done, but it's basically a song cycle where everyone fucks.
It is.
And everyone has an orgasm. Or no, only men have orgasms, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
Well, that's how it is in real life.
Is that the truth?
No.
Yep.
Cecily Strong said that in a skit once.
Yeah.
No, but here's the thing. I mean, the play that it was based on, was a cycle. It was basically a metaphor for syphilis. Because you had these two characters, and, they start off, and then this other character goes to this other character, and then that character goes to another character, and that was basically, the spread of the sexually transmitted disease.
That's actually a very smart idea. They did not implement that into
Hello
Again.
Hello Again is very different in no small part because it's not just, between characters, but across time. So it's more of a commentary on different types of relationships and, different pairings, same sex, opposite sex, older man and younger woman, younger man and older, younger woman and older woman.
I just imagine someone hearing that first pitch and was like, I'm going to write It Follows now. But yeah, I love that musical. Very, very horny. Overtly horny, which is rare in musicals. What do you think was like your big first musical sexual awakening where it's like, oh, you could do this on stage? Because I know this is weird, but Rent was probably one of my earliest, we could talk frankly about sexual stuff? I could see Idina Menzel's ass? What? In a musical?
Yeah.
Well, I think it's harder for me to pinpoint because I just, like we talked about in our last one, I was watching Grease a little too young. But I was also, going to the theater fairly young. My dad's was an actor, and so I was seeing a lot of nothing that was bad, but
right.
I think the first time I saw tits on stage was when my dad took me. There was a production of Measure for Measure at the Amundsen, and I think a bunch of equity people got to go, and we went to see it. And I think I was in middle school, and I remember being like, there are boobs on stage, and I think it was the first time I had seen real human boobs of a stranger in the same proximity as me. I was like, huh. And then I went to UC Santa Cruz, and forget about it. I saw so many naked people on stage.
Oh my gosh.
So many friends of mine I've just seen naked on stage. I've been naked on stage. To me it's a little.
You've done hair, so.
I've done hair,
yeah.
Oh, that's
of
another
sexy
musical.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh my God, hair has some great sexy
stuff.
So
yeah.
Burger is so hot, and it's great. And ironically, the nude scene is one of the more chaste moments in the show. So
no sodomy nor fellatio.
Yeah. No. But in terms of the Gene Kelly thing was a big thing for me.
Yeah.
I used to have a really big crush on him.
Yeah.
And I would just watch my mom's old movie musicals and just be like, swooning.
What were you trying to say, Christy?
Yeah.
Well, I already talked a bit about Phantom. I mean, that's kind of where I was, one of the first ones where I went, I'm kind of into that. But I think, the first one where I was like, I think the big one where I was like, oh my God, they're talking about sex and they're, being honest about it was a chorus line.
Yeah, that's a great one.
I mean, all of Hello 12, Hello 13, Hello Love, that's, puberty in a nutshell. And it's
not sexy at all. It's because puberty sucks.
Yeah, because puberty sucks. But, they were talking about, having, having
gonorrhea.
Sex. Yeah.
And don't forget Dance 10 Looks 3.
Dance 10 Looks 3.
10 Looks 3.
Yeah.
That so funny.
Obviously, it was, one of the first shows I'd seen gay characters in film before, the guy in Mannequin who was the stereotypical queen, but that was, I think, the first time where people talked about saying, yeah, I'm gay and this is what it's like for me. And I'm like, oh, okay. So, this is what they're like, but
I don't want to say this because it will show my age and make you guys feel bad, but one of
okay.
One that came right when I was like hitting that part in my life was Repo the Genetic Opera, where that stage, that movie musical is ungodly horny, almost uncomfortably horny.
Oh my God! Yes,
Repo. Fucking Repo.
Repo, I love it. But Sarah Brightman specifically in that movie, like she is probably
she's the one who horns you up the most.
Oh hell yeah!
Her with her like big weird eyes.
Yep.
Yeah.
If there was, I mean, that was the perfect role for her, because if there was ever a role that was supposed to be an amazing singer where it's all about her eyes are magic or she's got special eyes.
Yeah, and they can like really draw attention to them with like the huge ass fake eyelashes and everything. Yeah.
As far as iconography, that is like the most memorable part of that movie is just the way that she looks. And that is the icon of Repo the Genetic Opera. Fuck the grave robber and everything else. It's Sarah Brightman, those eyes, that is what's iconic. That's what everyone still talks about to this day.
Grave robber, grave robber.
I don't think she's terrible in that movie either.
I don't think she is either.
No.
I mean, everyone's terrible in it. I mean, because it's camp. It's bad. I mean,
I'll
it's
be honest,
supposed to be
that's kind of grown on me. I mean, it's not a great
Yeah.
movie, but it's like one of those. It's like, okay, yeah, this is a
when you know it started as like a
watch.
literal Fringe musical,
Yeah.
it's like it all makes sense. It all makes sense.
I more than kind of love that show. Like, it is such a time capsule of what 2008 filmmaking was, and also where the movie musical was. The fact that this could come out and gain such a strange cult following immediately.
But you're right. I mean, that was right when, like the ultra bloody torture porn stuff was big. So, yeah, you've got people, rolling around in blood and using, doing ventriloquist acts with corpses.
And that cast is stacked.
It is a good cast.
Good old Tony
Anthony Head. Oh my God.
He's sexy in that movie.
He
God,
is.
he's hot.
Hell, he's always been sexy.
Well, yeah.
You know what? If they do ever replace Patrick Page with anyone else, Anthony Head could step in as Hades and probably nail it.
I'd watch it.
Maybe you do it on the West End or something. Although I don't know his vocal range, how low he goes.
He's getting like a lot of attention because of mustache football show. Ted Lasso.
Mustache football show.
So sorry.
I still want to see Norm Lewis do Hades.
Oh yeah, I want to see Norm Lewis play every role. Shit, put him as fucking Persephone.
I just want the baritones back because they are sexy, and a baritone voice is sexy, and I miss them.
Okay, we're going to talk about Oklahoma That Fucks for a brief second, because I had a sexual moment last night when I just saw it, the tour production, and it's not what most people think. And Emily just triggered a neuron that made me say this. So for basically the entire first act, when Judd talks, he talks in my register, like upper, kind of very high, and then Lonely Room kicks in, and he pulls out the deepest baritone, because even like what's his name who did the Broadway version sang it up here, and then he pulls out this baritone. I'm like, oh yes, thank you for this. Thank you, sir.
I'm sorry, you can't kick Lonely Room up. That's great. That's a great baritone number.
Yeah. Well, and see, Jess, ironically, me who loves baritones, when I saw the production on Broadway and Damon Downo was singing There's a Bright Golden Haze on the Meadow, I was like, this is the hottest I've ever heard this song. How is Oh What a Beautiful Morning sounding so fucking sexy right now? And it's because he did like the yodel thing, that cowboy, that like lone cowboy poet thing, which is...
Yeah.
I will say,
I think I'm surprised it took people this long to realize how much sex is simmering under Oklahoma.
Yo, like when I watched the movie, the movie with Gordon McRae and Shirley Jones, watch it again, cause it's there.
Oh yeah,
like there's a reason why they threw him into Carousel after Frank Sinatra couldn't do it, because their chemistry is insane. It looks like they just want to like.
And Gordon McRae, that was like my classic movie crush, as a teenager. I mean, got him doing Soliloquy or People Will Say We're in Love.
It's so good.
Speaking of classic musical celebrity crushes, Shirley Jones in The Music Man. I don't think a woman looked as gorgeous as she does in that movie ever. Like I realized like it was probably she was pregnant, but she was looking like a little bit more rounder and normal. She looks incredible.
I love Shirley Jones so much. She's so beautiful. And I know this is dorky, but like I see that magnetism with Robert Preston. Like there's a reason why in my mind, just every other Harold Hill just can't quite compare.
Right.
Oh, shall we dance?
Yes.
Shall we dance?
Yes. Oh my goodness. Yeah. We they hold like this, and she's like, yes.
Sorry, when Yulbrynner goes to Deborah Carr and puts her hand.
Yeah. That's what
they
I'm
still
talking
have
about.
so much space between them.
That's what I'm talking about. You know, that little touch, you know, where he just actually puts his hand on her waist. That is, you know,
so good.
That.
And Yulbrynner's hand in the movie, he goes and he like holds it firmly, and oh my god, I'm sorry, I have to go. I have to go to the bathroom. Yeah, that Shall We Dance is so sexy. Oh man, yeah. Rogers and Hammerstein had a lot. Obviously, Carousel had some. The whole
busting out all over. Just
your favorite sequence, Jess. The whole "If I Loved You" sequence, simmering.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. All right, we need to take cold showers, so we're gonna have to wrap this episode up now.
Wait, there's so much more. No.
There is. We will do a part 2 of the horny one day.
What horns all of you up? Please tell us.
Yes.
Which musical stuff is sexy
Yes.
to you?
Yes. Write us.
Apparently, we just like the old shit. Is there anything new that makes us hot? I don't know. 80s sound, I guess.
Repo the Genetic Operas. That's new.
Yeah.
All right. Promote your guys' wonderful stuff for the world. Emily, you start.
All right. So you can find me at Stealing Focus on YouTube for musical theater history and reviews. And I'm at Emily A.B. Clark. It looks like Emily ABC Lark on all the socials, Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, all that stuff. Go find me.
And you recently did an incredible video on Shuffle Along with two of my favorite people in the world, Philip Sean Devon and Cam Blackwell.
Yes, I did do a video on Shuffle Along, on the history of Shuffle Along, the landmark 1921 Black Broadway musical, and the revival, featuring one of the original cast members of that revival, who's my old high school friend. So It was a lot of fun. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And Christy?
All right, I'm at Musical Hell pretty much on most social media things and on YouTube. I have a Patreon, I have merch, I have a lot of videos, most of them about bad musicals, but some about really good ones, so check it out.
And you just did like a video on The Wiz and Black
I did,
Theater, right?
Yes. It was, it's much shorter and less in depth than what Emily does, but it's a really tight overview of The Wiz and, kind of where Black musical theater was before it and where it's been since. So
I've seen both these videos. They're both great. They both do incredible work. If you want to hear my dumb ramblings, I have a podcast called Musicals and Cheese over on Broadway. What? What'd you say? All right, you guys. Anything else we have left to say?
Joanna's a pretty hot song.
You're right. We didn't even talk about Company.
Company!
We'll see you next time on the Dear Friends podcast.
Dear friends, spill your woes to your musical family. Dear friends, they will take your questions and turn them into nuggets of wisdom and anecdotes in an otherwise cynical world. Dear friends,